This is weird.
From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the Witching Hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Frosty, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I have a weird thing happening right at this very second.
At this very moment.
And I think that it would be helpful to say it on the air because I think that other people might be affected by this. So just real quick, I won't take too much time. So I got an email in my personal email saying that someone was interested in one of my spirit arts in my Etsy shop. So, and it seemed like a real legit question. So I replied to the question, and I got an email back saying that they had purchased it, and it's like a screenshot of like what it looks like if you buy something from somebody's shop. But there's a button on the bottom that I'm supposed to click that says release funds. And on my Etsy shop, there are no sales. Wow. And I immediately, after I replied to that person, got another email from a different email address that had this exact same question. So there is a scam going out. However that scam works, who knows?
Scams.
Like they're pretending to give me money. Like, I don't get it. But anyway, that's happening right now. So I just thought I'd put it out there. If anybody has an Etsy shop, I know my brother and my dad have an Etsy shop. I probably many other people in here, crafty folks I know have Etsy shops. So just be aware. Anyway, Frosty, I'm doing good other than that.
Well, you made the big time because you had somebody create I
have a fake Instagram, and now somebody's trying to pretend to buy spirit art.
If you want a reading from the medium Jenny Lee, you can get it through direct message for $999 or whatever.
That's just hoaxsters. He's always asking for too much money.
I mean, scams are the new everyday thing. I would just see if you can report it as spam or do whatever you can to report it and then just delete it.
I'll do it after.
As long as you haven't clickety-clacked on anything, you should be okay.
I did not click. All I did was respond because I thought it was a real question.
Right.
It is not a real question. Anyway, let's get going with the weird news.
The weird news. Well, before we get into the weird news, first want to tell everybody, thank you for being in here. It's good to see everybody tonight. Welcome in. We got a great show for you. I know I say that every week, but this week we do have a great show for you. We have a really great guest, and I think we're going to go down quite the rabbit hole tonight. So we're looking forward to that. I also want to let everyone know that we are part of the Spirit Realm Network. You can watch us on the Spirit Realm on Facebook, and here soon we will have a Roku app and the website back up, which are all undergoing like maintenance and updates and stuff right now. And we'll be right back at you there. Wherever you are watching us or listening to us, I know we have a lot of people who watch the podcast. So if you are someone who's listening to us on your way to work in your own time, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you can, wherever you're watching and listening, if you can hit the smash the like button, smash the like button, hit the do a review. On Apple Podcasts are the best places to be able to do a review for us. We do have a YouTube channel. If you go over there and give us a sub and a like or whatever, that would be great. And so there you go. Without further ado, here we go. The weird news.
The weird news.
We've got a lot of weird news for you today.
Hold your horses, buddy.
If
you got a spooky shop, a haunted attraction, paranormal book, or a strange little business of your own, you can sponsor the Witching Hours. We offer host read ads and sponsor the weird news segment. Sponsorship for the weird news segment. I thought I was going to really get it this time. You can find pricing and details at the Witching Hours podcast.com. Come get weird with us.
We're gonna get that. We're gonna nail that one time. Me and you are both gonna get everything right one day. like like we're professional podcasters, you
You're
know?
making me read this, and then you forget I'm supposed to read it every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, we had a little bit of time off. We're gonna have a little bit of time off coming up here soon again, though,
Actually,
too, at
we
the
are,
beginning of
yes.
July. So,
Mhm.
actually, I guess we could hit that real quick. The next 2 weeks, we are not gonna have well, I'll take that back. Um, in the next 2 weeks, we do not have a guest scheduled.
Yes.
And we left that open just in case we wanted to take some kind of summer excursion. We didn't have any big plans. I think we probably will be back next week just for like a
A
hangout.
hangout.
Maybe even going over some more of the government released
Yeah.
videos and stuff from
Especially
the
since
UFO
they
files.
released some more stuff recently.
Some weird stuff. So we'll be back. But our next scheduled guest is going to be Terry Adair, who's going to be coming on August 3rd, which is a UFO and alien skeptic. So we'll be kind of going down the
Oh,
other
that's an
side of the
interesting
government.
back-to-back set here.
Yeah, so there we go.
The
All right.
experiencer versus the skeptic. Bam.
Yeah.
It's a
All
fun
right.
little summer sandwich for you.
Exactly. White House picks Harvard professor with polarizing alien theories to lead new UFO council.
Okay.
Harvard astronomer known for splashy theories about alien visits has been tapped by the White House to lead a team of outside scientists study the national security risk posed by UFOs. Of course, that's none other than Avi Loeb, a cosmologist who studied black holes and served as head of Harvard's astronomy department until 2020. He was recently appointed to helm a new scientific advisory council tasked with investigating the origins of mysterious orbs and other objects reported by military personnel in recent years. Loeb's team will report to a new White House panel focused on UFOs, now often referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
So Avi Loeb back in the news. So we'll see what happens with that. Story number 2, teens accused of using plasma cannon to break into Smith High School.
What?
2 teenagers made their first appearance in Guilford County Court in Greensboro on Monday to face multiple charges after several people were accused of using what court records described as a powerful explosive to break into Smith High School. Solomon Caravello Bell, 18, and Chase Haracharan, I tried my best with that last name, 18, were arrested and taken to the Guilford County Jail on the following charges: felony breaking and entering, explosives on educational property, possessions of a weapon of mass destruction,
Holy
a
moly.
homemade plasma cannon, malicious use of explosives, and felony conspiracy. A juvenile was also detained before being released into custody of a parent. So both allegedly used a homemade plasma cannon to burn a bush and damage the door of the Smith High School in Greensboro before breaking into the building, according to the warrant.
I mean, they're 18. Don't you think they'd be ready to like be done with high school? Why are they breaking into it?
I guess they wanted to. I guess they wanted to see. I guess they wanted to see if they could get in through the door there. Mm-hmm.
That is
They made it into the
unbelievable.
school, but that's. I feel like if you can make a homemade plasma cannon, you should probably be doing better things with your time than trying to break into the high school.
Right? I know. Use that
Mm.
use the smarts for something worthwhile there.
The only thing I would think that would be worthwhile at that point is if they're like comic book villains and they needed some kind of something from the science labs or something to be able to make their next dastardly dastardly conspiracy with to break into the high school. Other than that, but interesting nonetheless. Story number 3: research discovered your brain really can sync up with someone else's. A team of researchers published their finding and trends in cognitive sciences is a real phenomena that's been observed in laboratories and real-world settings. Now, researchers say it isn't just measurable, but it can actually be strengthened. Researchers reviewed a decade of studies involving thousands of people, from regular everyday students to professional artists. Using portable EEG headsets, researchers found that when people are genuinely engaged with one another, their brainwave activity begins to align. Even more interesting, when participants received real-time feedback showing how synchronized they were, that alignment often became even stronger. The researchers think this feedback could eventually become a tool to be deployed in therapeutic settings, schools, and in any walk of life that requires team building. A new federally funded, larger version of the study will test whether strengthening synchrony between therapists and patients can improve treatment outcomes.
I love that science is finally catching up to what all the woo-woo people already know. However, just like the dream thing, like where they're coming up with, you know, getting into people's dreams and they're just going to make McDonald's commercials for us to watch in our sleep. I can see this also going awry when we have our team building at work, making us do it telepathically with each other.
Yeah.
Like, no, I do not want to talk to Ed across the way from me who, like about how to strengthen whatever, work related thing. No thanks.
Mhm.
How about no?
It is interesting too, because people were talking about the possibility of being able, like how that would work with how that works in the classrooms too, and like the fact that if you can create a classroom dynamic where students actually are engaged with the teacher, like that's one of those things that, like the brain waves happening can
Then
actually
there'll
heighten learning
definitely be
ability.
more kids that bring the plasma gun to school.
So yeah, I mean, well, we were talking about this the other day, like I imagine we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more tonight, but the idea of telepathy and the benefit of, I guess, understanding to a certain degree that it's plausible, possible things that all humans are capable of, and I guess this is a scientific step in that direction of acknowledging that to at least some degree.
Yeah.
So there we go. Smelling one specific scent can boost the brain's gray matter. According to a new study, wearing the right kind of perfume or cologne can enlarge your brain's gray matter. Researchers from Kyoto University and the University of Tsukuba in Japan asked 28 women to wear a specific rose scent oil on their clothing for a month, with another 22 volunteers enlisted as controls who put on plain water instead. MRI scans showed boosts in gray matter volume of those who wore rose scent. While an increase in brain volume doesn't nearly translate into more thinking power, the findings could have implications for neurodegenerative conditions such as dementia.
Well, another little side story for everybody. There was a bunch of guys in the Sheetz parking lot trying to sell perfume out of their trunk of their car today. And if they would have led with that sales key
Pitch.
talking point, it probably would have been all right. Instead, he was like, yo, you like perfume? And his car is like blaring, like a whole bunch of cussing rap music. And I'm like, ay. So that story would definitely be helpful for the gas station perfume salesmen.
Mm-hmm.
Need to send it their way. Next time I see them, we'll let them know.
So that is interesting. Like, we know that smell has a lot to do with like with our brain in terms of memories. Me and you were having this conversation the other day, like what does the brain do and what does the brain not do? Yeah. What does the brain do and what does the spirit do? Like, what does the soul do? What's the difference between the soul and the brain? Which one is controlling what? And we were having a conversation about like memory and whether memory is in the soul or memory is in the brain. And this kind of goes to this one idea too about the idea that smells can often bring back like memories. So like certain smells can bring back. So
which I think most people know that just from their own experiences.
Yeah. Christy, yes, we do post videos. You can find us on youtube.com, The Witching Hours Podcast. You can find us on all your podcast podcast platforms as well. The Witching Hours podcast. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and I don't know, Pandora and iHeartRadio, all the places you can find us. So wherever your favorite place is to listen to this stuff, feel free to follow us on there. And like I said earlier, hit the like button, and all those things are wonderful. Thank you. All right. So story number 5 tonight is the Pentagon releases a new batch of UFO files. The Pentagon on Friday released a new batch of files related to UFOs, also known as, man, why do they have to put this in every article? They're UFOs, including one report. I mean, it's like, I mean, look, if we were calling it
anomalous phenomena,
if we were calling it UAPs at this point, you wouldn't have to say it in every single news story about UFOs, right? Like, I need to start editing out like the term. I'm done with. At first, I was like willing to pander, like UAPs, whatever. I like the idea that there was a difference between UAP and USO. Yeah, something that was seen in the air and something that was seen in the ocean. But we can just say UFO and USO. There's no reason to have this UAP thing. I feel like there's some kind of like switcheroo that they're trying to do with this there anyway by changing that term. I don't know. Anyway, including one report from a military aviator who said he had a mysterious object unlike anything he had ever seen in his 28 years of service. Friday's release included 40 files, 14 documents, 19 videos, 4 audio files, and 3 images. The files come from a variety of agencies: the Pentagon, NASA, CIA, FBI, and Energy Department. The Pentagon posted the new files on its UFO website, so I think maybe we'll take a look at that again on next Monday, which houses the material that has been released under the executive order that Trump signed earlier in the year. And if you haven't seen it, it is pretty interesting. There's some pretty interesting pictures in there. One that looks like, I was showing them to you, Jenny. One that looks very interesting is like very blocky and cubey and I don't know, look like some kind of Star Wars probot droid or something. Then there was kind of like the diamond shape with like a halo around it that was interesting, which also kind of matches up with what some of the fighter pilots are saying they saw off the coast down not that far from here in Virginia, so lots of interesting things that were on the videos this go around. We'll see what has to do with that. And then finally, our last story tonight, something sweet lurks near the center of the Milky Way.
It's a caramel filling.
Yeah. I have no clue how to pronounce it. Etherulose, a sugar found in raspberries and kiwis and many red fruits, also apparently exists in a giant molecular cloud of gas and dust near the center of our galaxy.
How do they even know that?
26,745. I don't know. Maybe they did it. I don't know. 26,745 light years from Earth. This marks the first time a sugar has been seen in interstellar space. The results have been published in Nature Astronomy. The question is, how did that sugar get there? For life as we know it, sugars are vital both as energy storage molecules and as ingredients in biological building blocks such as DNA and RNA. But they also are relatively fragile and not necessarily easy to make from scratch, whether in deep space or on the early prebiotic Earth. Molecular clouds offer a potential shortcut for manufacturing sugars. However, because they're huge chemical factories, the molecular clouds can also be stellar nurseries, incubating new stars and planets in their depths. So I thought that was interesting, like the fact that there's just like these huge clouds of dust. Some of these clouds of dust are actually clouds of sugars, which could be
the center of our galaxy was cotton candy.
Some kind of
I knew it.
Incubation center. Like some of these incubation centers actually are sugar. I don't know.
Sugar.
Which is one of the building blocks, right? So there we go.
Yes, yeah. Weird. That was a weird one.
That was the weird news. All right. Courtney Buterbaugh is a lifelong super experiencer of the phenomena, recently emerged from a profound awakening journey, who now feels a deep passion for holding space for the awakening journeys of others. As a result of her contact experiences, she has developed the felt sense that, above all, UFOs are portals, initiatory invitations to awaken to the knowing that's rooted deep in our human bodies. Please welcome to the show, Courtney Buterbaugh. How are you doing, Courtney?
I'm doing well. Thank you all for having me.
I'm so
Yeah, we're
excited
super
you're
excited to have you
here.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that is interesting that, next time you're getting a skeptic.
Right.
So you can go mano a mano with a
I'm not going to say anything that I will not enjoy that conversation, but I'm probably definitely going to enjoy this one more.
it will be interesting for sure. It will be
But
interesting.
we like to have, both sides of the story there. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but anyway, we're very excited to have you on. I wanted to start out, we usually start out with like, how did all of this start for you? Like your childhood things. But I kind of wanted to start out with a definition for people who don't really know what this means. There's like this new term of experiencer.
Mhm.
So, what does that mean to you since you are one of them?
I think that your people are hearing it. Oh, probably a lot of people are hearing it for the first time in Disclosure Day, because believe it or not, they actually use the E word, which for people who are actually experiencers, that kind of, hit like, it was like a F bomb at a funeral. You're just sort of like, what happened? Like you almost can't believe your ears that somebody actually said the word out loud. So that was a milestone. And I think if Disclosure Day goes down in history for absolutely nothing else, it will go down for being a movie that really introduced the idea of an experiencer to the wider public. In the context that you often hear it used and probably will hear it used, it means people who have experienced some sort of contact with UFOs or other anomalous sorts of contact.
Another fun term that we like to make fun of.
The anomalous, which can include just about anything.
Right.
But I like to also point out that it's a big bucket, right? It doesn't just mean UFOs. It means, have you seen ghosts? Have you had spontaneous mediumship? Have you had past life recall? Have you had precognitive dreams? Have you had telepathic, connections with, this can be any flavor of woo that you like. If you have experienced something that exists outside, sort of the agreed bounds of consensus reality, then you're an experiencer. And when you use that kind of a definition, like that's a big bucket. Like,
right.
That
because I didn't think that
awful lot of people.
I wouldn't think that I would include myself in that term, but in your definition, I absolutely would be.
Yeah. So I like to make it more inclusive.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to point out that this isn't just like, one thing that really irritated me about Disclosure Day is how they're like, you two are the chosen ones,
Yeah.
And
right.
it's like, no. There are millions of people, millions of people who have just seen UFOs. And then if you enlarge that bucket to include everybody else that has had some sort of an anomalous experience, then you're going to get half the planet.
Right.
It's huge.
Frosty and we had that conversation about like why they only would have done 2 people. And like,
Spielberg said in an interview.
Yeah.
I watched an interview with Spielberg, and he said that he thinks there's lots of people, but he's telling a narrative story.
Yeah.
And so he chose 2 people because he wanted to make a story about it. But he thinks that there's many people that are contacted. Yeah. So, kind of goes along with what we've been thinking a little bit about that specifically.
Yeah. But I had interrupted a question you were going to ask. What were you going to ask?
Well, that's actually what I was going to bring up, was the fact that, Disclosure Day specifically, I think, came about at a very interesting time, and just kind of to get your thoughts on that specifically. Have you seen? I'm taking it you've seen the movie, and what your thoughts on it were.
Yeah, I did see it. I saw it on preview night the night before, and then I have also seen it one more time since. So I've seen it twice. Um, and it landed really different for me both times. I mean, the first time, I think I was just kind of awestruck by the fact that they used the word experiencer. Like I just kind of I couldn't get over that. It was wow. Um, and I think that they did a fairly accurate job of depicting what it's like to experience some of these phenomenon. Like obviously Spielberg does his homework, and I think you can go back through E.T., you can go back to Close Encounters, and you can see that like he's talked to experiencers. He has done his homework because the kinds of things that he portrays happening in the movie are things that are pretty common to people who have had these types of experiences with UFOs or non-human intelligences. So it felt good that he got that right, because there's always the chance, and I think I felt fairly safe with Spielberg because he had a little bit of a track record with this subject, but there's always the chance that the director is going to go, way off, on some left turn and produce something that is just not good for experiencers.
Right.
Clearly that didn't happen. So that was great. The first time I saw it, I really couldn't get over, and this is something we can talk about later. I don't want to derail the conversation now with this, but I couldn't get over like a specific response that I had to something in the movie that connected to my personal story. So that was a whole thing. The second time I saw it, it landed a little bit differently. Well, the first time I saw it with my husband, who is not an experiencer. And it hit obviously very different for him. And I think that sometimes some of the things in the movie, I wonder if people who were not experiencers or not well versed in UFO lore, are they even going to understand some parts of this movie?
I didn't think so, because I've heard the other side of what people have thought about it, and it's like they thought it was dumb or they didn't get it or whatever. And it's like, I think it's just because they, like you said, they don't have any knowledge of like the UFO lore, or they haven't had their own experiences. So it's totally coming from left field, and they don't get it.
Yeah, so I think the second time it hit me a little bit harder just how wide that gulf may be between, the people that are going to get this movie and then the people that are going to not understand the movie. And then, are going to get stuck on all the plot holes and, which is something else, something else entirely. But also the second time, it occurred to me, it hit me a little bit harder how the experiencer community was responding to the fact that they, regardless of what Spielberg has said in an interview, that it kind of comes off as that this is a chosen role, that these people are somehow pre-chosen. And I think that people actually may be chosen, but they're chosen by the thousands and tens of thousands and millions, not there are two people on the planet that get to. And, experiencers are kind of at a really tender place right now, which is as disclosure happens, the conversation is opening up who gets to speak for experiencers and who gets to tell the experiencer story, because experiencers,
and I can see that going haywire.
Not have like experiencers are the elephant in every room. Like the committee that you were just talking about that has Avi Loeb on it, and this UAP committee. I think a couple of those people are experiencers, they certainly don't lead with that, and they certainly don't make a point of having people who are just experiencers
We
involved
haven't
in any
got
of
there
this,
yet.
who
Yeah.
don't have some other sort of credential. You know, you have to, that doesn't get you, I mean, that not only doesn't get you a seat at the table, that doesn't even get your foot in the door
Right.
of any room. And so it's like I said, it's a tender space for experiencers now. And a lot of us are kind of a little bit just gun shy about how the dialogue unfolds as to what an experiencer is, you know, who it is, and who gets to tell that story, who gets to control that narrative.
You know, this brings up a lot of really great, questions and I guess conversation, just in general here, because when talking about like telling the experiencer side of the story, and talking about kind of the the chasm that could exist kind of between how people saw that movie and what people think disclosure is and what UFOs are doing here and all those kinds of things. Um, it really brings in this idea that there really is two very different sides, I think, right now of what people think ET are and why ET would be here and what is actually happening. And I think that kind of goes, what was the name of that documentary, Jenny? Was it Disclosure Now? The documentary that was released fairly recently about like the government disclosure, and it was very much based on like military threats and national security and like what could ET, what kind of weapons would they have and how, and so, you know, we have a lot of people who are thinking about it from that perspective about like national security and ET, and then we have kind of another community that's very much like looking at this from a spiritual point of view, and but in a lot of ways being contacted through that method as well. So I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah, it's this whole sort of divide between, you know, the militarization of contact. I mean, you can trace that all the way. That's not a new idea. That goes all the way back to, you know, like, um, just one example, the movie Contact,
Mm-hmm.
which is based on Carl Sagan's novel that was made in, I think, '96. You know, part of what they discuss in that movie is the assumption that any sign of intelligent life off world has to be met with a military response. And just how do you decide who gets to speak at that
Mm-hmm.
point? And how do you decide how you respond? And I mean, the disclosure community, or the ufological community, I will say, is really, there's a pretty stark divide between what you call like your nuts and bolts people, who are, you know, UFOs are physical craft that have come here from some other place, like you get in your car and drive to grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another camp of people that see these as consciousness phenomena. And I, for a moment, want to just not even go to the spiritual angle, but just to say they see these as consciousness phenomena, that these are not necessarily taking place in the same consensus physical reality that, you know, you would assume that a UFO contact experience would take place in, where it would be indistinguishable from normal waking consciousness. First of all, that, you know, it does happen that way for some people. For a lot of other people, it doesn't. And so it's a
Mm-hmm.
very complicated phenomenon that kind of breaks along those lines. You know, you have kind of the gearheads and then the consciousness people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not never the twain shall meet, but there is a fairly pronounced divide. But most experiencers, I will say, ultimately get to the realization that this is a spiritual phenomenon. And it can start with very traumatic encounters. Um, abductions, I don't, the word abduction is a tricky one because it's kind of falling out of favor. We don't love to use it, but if you use it, people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask about that earlier, actually, too, because, obviously most of us grew up with that term, abduction. And I can understand why 100% why people, why many would choose to use a different word for that. But I guess there still are cases where people feel like they were abducted. And so in that case, it's still good to use, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the moving away from it is rooted more in trying to expand the interpretation of this from just a strictly trauma-based physicalist phenomenon. But that is also, we shouldn't discount the fact that this is very traumatic for a lot of people, and that for a lot of experiencers who experience what we would think of as a classic abduction scenario, that it frequently is traumatic. But even people that start there, ultimately, almost all of them generally eventually get to a point where they see it primarily as a spiritual phenomenon. And you can ask people, do you wish it had never happened? And they're like, boy, it was the worst thing ever, but I'm glad it happened because it has led me, and in many cases over the course of decades, because most people who experience that type of contact, it starts in childhood. And so they may not realize it until adulthood, but you wind up having this lifelong history of that type of contact. And it almost in every case inevitably leads to a spiritual awakening process, because it becomes very clear over time that this is not just a physicalist, materialist phenomenon, because it is associated with all kinds of other high strangeness that accompanies it. And, people find out then that it's connected to the dead, and it's connected to, psychokinetic phenomena. It's connected to telepathy. It's connected to all sorts of other, to healing, to all kinds of other phenomena. And I think that the process of just going through that raises consciousness to a level that winds up ultimately being a spiritual phenomenon.
All right. I want to continue moving forward this conversation because there's a lot of places we want to get tonight, and we want to get into your experiences specifically. And I know Jenny has a ton to talk about, but for 1 second, I'm going to bring us back to something we were talking about before real quickly.
Okay.
Which is going back to Spielberg for 1 second. Only because I found something out today that I brought up to Jenny that was kind of I have long suspected, no proof, of course, but I've long suspected that maybe Spielberg was in on a little something, that some information had been dropped to him at some point, going all the way back to Close Encounters of a Third Kind. And I've always talked about how I felt like he was connected at least a little bit to what actually was happening. Like E.T. was a nonviolent entity who came to Earth that was worried about the planet. Close Encounter of the Third Kind, I just felt like his was more on it than say like Independence Day or something like that, right? And after seeing the newest movie, I was watching a very short, I spend all day looking at this stuff half the time. So I had a short video with Spielberg that came up today, and someone asked him if Elliot had ever seen E.T. again. And he said, well, not in person, but in his dreams and in his thoughts. And then he pointed out that at the end of E.T., E.T. points to his forehead and says, I'll be right here. And then you fast forward to what's happening in Disclosure Day, and it's like, oh, there was the message all along. Like what was going to happen in Disclosure Day was in E.T.
But we didn't get it in the 80s.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
He doesn't point at his heart. Because I was thinking like, he pointed at Elliot's heart, like, oh, I'll be in your. No, he pointed to his third eye and said,
telepathy,
I'll be right here. So there we go.
Yeah, that's a really cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Okay, so before we you brought up a whole bunch of things that I had questions about, and I kind of want to dive deeper into them. But like Frosty said, I think we need to we want to talk about your experiences too. But we do have 2 questions from chat that I want to make sure we ask. One of them is from David over on Facebook, and he said, "What are your feelings about the UFOs supposedly in the oceans?"
I think that to the extent that they're anywhere, they're probably there too. I mean, I think that there's some pretty compelling evidence that all of these things are real. And obviously, as an experiencer, I'm sort of predisposed to that belief. But I think that they are in every physical space, but they're also in every metaphysical space. Because, like I said, it's so complicated. Like, this isn't anything you can cover in an hour.
No.
But yes, I 100% believe that there are probably USOs, as they call them, just as much as there are UFOs. And disclosure is just going to get, if it really all comes out, it's just going to get messy. Because then we're going to have to talk about undersea bases and underground bases. And there's going to be a whole ontological reckoning involved with this stuff coming out. So if you're going to ask me what I ultimately see happening with all this, I couldn't begin to tell you. But But as far as them being in the oceans, yep, 100% believe it.
Second question's from Fantasy Animal Vegan on Twitch. Since I was a child, I would get 106-degree fevers and saw things that others didn't. Is this part of the high strangeness?
Well, I think it certainly can open the door to that. There's a story, and I don't know that it's available online anymore. There's an experiencer named Stuart Davis who did a audio documentary called Man Meets Mantis, and fever was actually his opening into his contact experience when he's meditating during fevers. He has recurrent high fevers, and he's meditating during these fevers. And it's during one of those meditation while fevering that this giant praying mantis shows up in his room and sort of initiates him into contact. Anybody that's interested in fever and the anomalous should try to get a hold of that and listen to that, because I definitely think those things can be related, because anything that takes you into a liminal space has the potential it invites the anomalous. And a fever, especially 106, I've had 105 fever before, and that was a whole thing. I can't even imagine 106, but yes, that could definitely push you into a liminal space that could invite those kinds of phenomena for sure.
Right. His picture is called Man Meets Mantis.
Yes.
And that was Stuart Davis. Awesome. All right, cool. Okay, so now before, because the time will get away from us, because it always does. Now let's go talk about your experiences. So where does that begin? And then I know, from us talking to each other a little bit before and also following you online, that more has come about in the last few years. So take it away, Courtney.
Oh boy. Okay. How to do the Cliff Note version. So telling my story, it's weird because there's the temptation to do it chronologically, but it almost kind of makes more sense to start with the long COVID, because that's sort of where this really opened up for me. I mean, since birth, I've known that I could see spirits, although it took up until my teens or young adulthood probably to realize that was what was actually going on, that I was able to sense spirits and see ghosts and that kind of thing. It was very clear from almost immediately, though, that I did not perceive the world in the same way that everybody else did. I was very sensitive to energy. I've always been one of those people that, like, I can't wear watches. I interfere with electronics. And I
We
just,
talk about that a lot on here. That a
yeah,
lot of people that have these, psychic abilities or whatever, however you want to explain it, it seems like we really screw up electrical things.
yeah, for sure. So I mean, I just had a lifetime. I had a weird time slip experience that with my father that both of us experienced.
Wow.
So like the anomalous has always kind of been around me and has been a feature of my life. But it wasn't until I got long COVID. I got sick in March of 2020, and
Right at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
right at the beginning. Yep.
Dang.
Yep. I was an early adopter. And I actually probably got sick in like December of 2019, but I didn't actually hit the wall with long COVID until March of 2020. I mean, I didn't actually get to the point then where I could not get out of bed. And so that was the next 3 years of my life of kind of, getting to the point where I was fully bedbound for about 3 years.
Wow.
And at times I was so ill that all I could do was just lie there in bed and take up space.
And this is like having troubles breathing, like like those kind of symptoms.
I did not have any breathing issues or lung damage or anything like that because I didn't even realize that I'd had COVID. Like it was so minor that I didn't even, it wasn't like, what is this? Other than losing taste and smell, I had zero symptoms. So I did not have any respiratory damage or anything like that. Mine ended up being more of like the neurological, the fatigue, just that sort of flavor of long COVID. Just the severe fatigue, the post-exertional malaise, the brain fog, the all of the neurological stuff that goes along with it. So I was about 3 or 4 months into the long COVID when I had what I would call a spiritually transformative experience, which is I was lying there in bed and I had this out of body sort of experience, spontaneous out of body experience where I met my spirit guide. They just sort of showed up and introduced themselves, and it was kind of like, hey, been around, your whole life, and here you are. I was 49 at the time. And so it's kind of like, all right, well, time to get rolling. We are live. And your life is never going to be the same.
Wow.
And my spirit guide ended up being a giant interdimensional mantis, and I'm really glad that she didn't lead with that, because that would have been a lot,
right?
A lot to digest at first. So it started with this. I started having these spontaneous out of body experiences. I started having energy coming off of my hands. I developed this like healing type things. Jenny and I actually met in a mediumship class.
We did.
Because I was having spontaneous mediumship. Everything just went off the chain. I was having Kundalini symptoms, and I'm like, I can take an online class from bed. I was just trying to figure out what on earth was happening to me, because even for somebody who was pretty tolerant of the woo, it was clear that things were going off the rails. And it was like, I don't know, is this awakening symptom? Is it long COVID? At some point, I don't even know. And I got progressively sicker and sicker. I was probably at my worst through 2022. And that was when I really was so ill that I couldn't speak. I struggled to eat. I struggled to get out of bed.
It's unbelievable that I just can't even imagine it like being that long.
Yeah.
Like that had to have just been, I just can't imagine.
Yeah. So, the whole and even if you just take all the woo out of it, just going through that experience alone has a whole bunch of spiritual, spiritual connotations to a journey like that. But it was in December of 2022 that I was in one of those periods where I was just lying in bed, couldn't do anything. And all of a sudden I perceive that there are beings in the room. There are 5 beings in the room with me, and I can't really see them, but I know they're there. And then I have this sense of being again taken out of my body, up through the ceiling, through the roof, and I find myself lying on a table on what is obviously a UFO.
Wow.
And I had never up to this point been interested in UFOs. It was just never anything that interested me. It just, I knew nothing about this, but I knew enough of the pop culture, things to sort of recognize, okay, this looks like a UFO. And there were these beings that looked like the stereotypical gray aliens. There were 5 of them around me, and they were communicating telepathically. And it was sort of like, hey, we're just checking on you. And they gave me to understand that they were not frightening to me. I was not frightened at all. I was a little weirded out, but not frightened. They felt familiar, and it became very clear to me that I had interacted with them before. And they put this thing down over top of me that's sort of like a holographic screen, like a plate. And they slide it down my body, and they're making it clear that they're scanning my body. They're checking up on me physiologically because they're interested in my genes. They've been following my family, and they're interested in what is going on with my body now because I have COVID. And that was what prompted this visit, was we're kind of just checking your COVID body. And I mean, I'm trying to take this all in, right? And I'm perceiving the environment. I'm just kind of trying to get my bearings. And then all of a sudden, this huge praying mantis stands up at the foot of this table that I'm lying on.
Was that her?
It was not her.
No, it was a different one.
No, it was a different one. I have I have a team of them. There are 5 included, but this wasn't even one of those 5. This was just, but I mean, you can imagine my shock. I'm like, okay, I really am, my mind has gone off the deep end. Like a giant bug. Okay, I can kind of understand the gray aliens because they're ubiquitous in culture, but what is this? Where is this praying mantis coming from? But again, there was this sense of, I know you.
Yeah.
I have seen you before. And then this is all happening very fast. The communication is telepathic. It doesn't even occur to me that it's telepathic. It's just happening. Then they start showing me videos, and it's like these videos are just floating in space somewhere. And there are these clips of videos that are sped up really fast, but it's apocalyptic kinds of scenes. It's fires, it's earthquakes, it's nuclear weapons. And there's no real, they don't tell me what this is for. It's just kind of happening. And it's just sort of like, you have work to do. And by the way, you'll be healed when the time is right. And then, I'm back down in my bed. There is this like intense static charge in the room. The light starts flickering.
Oh my goodness.
And there I am.
So all of this happens. Wow. And then like there's no memory loss from it. It's like it happens and it stays with you You don't forget about it. You don't have to like recall it. It's just like it's like we're having this conversation right now.
It was a fully conscious experience.
Wow.
And I wouldn't say that it was indistinguishable from ordinary waking reality. It was obvious that it was happening in some other level of consciousness.
Right.
But it was no, whether it's astral or I don't know, but it was no less real.
Yeah.
Than anything that would happen to you in, your ordinary waking reality.
So I've listened to a lot of experiencer stories, and that seems to be a common theme, that they're shown all of these disastrous things happening to Earth. And it seems like the consensus is that they're showing what could happen if we don't do what we need to do. Is that what you thought also?
That is ultimately what I came away with. Obviously this took a lot of processing. And I was so ill at the time, but it was
probably over a long period of time, I imagine.
Yeah, but with what energy I had, I'm like laying there in bed with my phone, like Googling trying to figure out what on earth just happened to me.
Yeah.
And I eventually obviously began to put it together that while this was completely off of my radar, outside my experience, it had a lot of elements that are pretty common to
absolutely
onboard craft experiences. And that sort of opened the door to me realizing that I apparently have had contact. And so I had plenty of time to lay there and think. And then I began this process of just recontextualizing, revisiting memories and recontextualizing almost everything that had ever happened to me that I could remember. Because I think part of it is that it does open this window where other anomalous things start to happen. And that can include memory retrieval, like spontaneous memory retrieval. But it also just put me in this frame of mind where now I'm going back to these things that happened in childhood. And I'm like, oh yeah, I used to have this recurring dream that I was floating up through, that always took place in the backyard of my childhood home. And I was floating up into the sky at night and I couldn't stop it. And then there are times that I would hide in my closet as a child, and I would do drills that, if I needed to hide, I knew that I could hide in my closet, and I would sometimes wake up in weird places, and, like this whole thing. And then it just became obvious to me that I probably, although I have not yet specifically recovered a lot of those memories, this has probably been happening since I was very young.
Right.
And it's just been this point in my life when I have been, as Margaret was as Daniel and Margaret are in Disclosure Day, activated,
Yeah.
Where then all of a sudden the pieces start really falling into place. And I was indeed, it took a couple more years, but I was indeed healed, if you consider that I almost overnight went from being that ill to being functional again.
Wow.
And I'm not, there's no way I could work. It's like healing is relative, right? But given where I was, it's night and day difference, and I can be a functional human again. And I have been given the understanding too that you've been given this because you have a purpose, and your purpose is to help experiencers, because you may have noticed that something is happening in our world right now.
Absolutely. All right, Frosty. Well, sorry to interrupt, Courtney. Yes, that's the message I keep getting to.
Hello, way to go.
It's the top of the hour. But go ahead.
want to let me go and reset it, and I want to get into a question real quick after. So, if you've joined us since the beginning, welcome in. We're glad to have you here on the Witching Hours tonight. Our guest is Courtney Buterbaugh. So, we are going to have a wonderful. We're already having a wonderful conversation. Yeah. If you have questions, make sure you put them in chat. We will try to get to them the best that we can, and we will definitely kind of at the end of the show try to get through as many as we can that you guys have in chat. So if you have them in there, feel free to put them in. Thank you for watching, and we are going to carry on here. So one thing that I was thinking about while you were talking about the experience itself is, someone who I kind of have kept up with a lot of, I've been kind of a UFO nerd since I was a teenager. So one of the things that was always seemed to be the case was that people had to go through some kind of hypnosis or regression or something like that a lot of times to remember their experiences, Whitley Strieber and Travis Walton and all these kinds of things.
Sure.
But then there comes a point to where all of a sudden they have the experience where they remember. Do you have a theory or a reason why you have all these ones that you didn't remember, and then all of a sudden you had like a conscious experience?
I have a couple thoughts on that. I don't know for sure, but my basic philosophy of the purpose of contact by non-human intelligences in general is that it is on some level a developmental driver. Meaning that it is meant to encourage human spiritual development. And so I think that probably several things happen, that you get to a point where you've done enough work on yourself, maybe, that the beings think you are ready to metabolize these experiences, because they're intense and you can't just open that gate on somebody that isn't ready for it. Mm-hmm. But I think going through the illness really sort of accelerated my spiritual development, because, boy, did I ever learn things like the concept of surrender, and, like 20 years of Buddhist meditation did not get me to the place where I understood about living in the moment, and some of these, pretty common spiritual themes. So I think that there's some level on which you have to be ready for it in a sort of a human spiritual development sense. I just think, I think you have to be able to metabolize those things. I think that's one thing, but I'm also exploring another kind of personal. I'm actually writing an article about it for my Substack now, where I'm sort of exploring some ideas about how memory might work, and it's based on my experience of watching Disclosure Day, which got me started thinking about how does memory recovery work for experiencers, like what is actually going on there, because I think that also there's some degree of encoding that goes on with these memories, that you have to have the cipher to unlock these memories. And sometimes that is experiential. You'll have another experience that somehow is similar enough to when that memory was encoded that it sort of unlocks it by some process. So I think it's a combination of both. It's retrieval of these. There's a process by which you can retrieve these encoded memories, and also a process by which the beings have some control over your ability to remember.
Yeah, that reminds me a little bit of like, because in the movie they showed like the different animals, and I've long kind of heard about the owl, like experiencers like having seen this owl in a window or whatever, and then that kind of unlocks and they realize that it was ET. But okay,
yeah, that's super common. And maybe this was a good place to just, again, I'll try to give you the CliffNote version of what happened while I was watching Disclosure Day.
That was what I was going to ask next. Good.
that does sort of illustrate how some of this memory retrieval happens. So I'm assuming this is a couple mild spoilers here for people.
So if you haven't watched it, turn the volume down.
Yeah, when they go into the house that they have reconstructed, it's Margaret's childhood home, and she goes into her childhood bedroom, and she's, the camera is sort of panning around as she looks at these objects in her bedroom. And she turns and you see this mobile made of paper cardinals. When in that moment in the theater, it was just like everything, like the bottom dropped out of reality, and I was sucked back into time, into my childhood bedroom, where I had had experiences with strange bright lights outside my window that as a kid I always thought were helicopters. Does that make any sense, really, though, that helicopters would routinely come and hover outside my bedroom window
and shine right in the window?
And shine right in my window.
And you wouldn't be able to hear them?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Like these things don't bear that kind of logical scrutiny when you really start thinking about them. But I was taken back to, it was like I was back in my childhood bedroom, and I was lying in bed at night, and the lights were coming, and I glance across at the window that's on the other side of my room, and there's a paper cardinal clipped to the drapes in my childhood bedroom.
No way.
And it was a paper cardinal that I had made in preschool and was clipped to the curtains in the bedroom, where I had all of these childhood contact experiences that I couldn't remember.
Wow.
And all of a sudden it was like my mind just goes, and all of those experiences just sort of like flip,
like they unraveled.
Yeah, unravel super fast in my mind, and then whoop, I'm back in the theater, and I gasped so loud that I'm sure that the entire theater heard me.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had this weird knowing that, people that experience anomalous phenomena, you just kind of had this knowing sometimes. And it was like, I just had this knowing that me from a future timeline had traveled back in time and caused me in that timeline to choose out of this pile of construction paper animals, pick the cardinal, put it on your drapes, because almost 50 years from now, when you watch this movie, you will see this cardinal in the movie, and it will unlock all of those memories, and you will know in that moment that it's all real, that everything you sort of gaslight yourself about, and that, like, I have to be crazy, surely that didn't happen. It was just, in that moment that it's real.
It's like you set up a synchronicity for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like I planted this somehow so that it would be this confirmatory kind of synchronicity.
I've had some experiences like that too. And it was like, I had to, like, that didn't happen often, where I figure something like that out. But like every once in a while I notice where I find something and I'm like, like, I didn't understand what that was then, but I get it now. Frosty, did you want to ask Fantasy Animal Vegans next question? Starts with a random thought there.
Okay, yeah. Are there any known writings about COVID being a tool of the Greys / Mantids to bring forth a massive awakening / reawakening to the Wu? Something you've thought about?
It is, yeah, it's definitely something I've thought about. It's something that, obviously I'm in some experiencer groups, and it's something that experiencers certainly have talked about. I'm not aware of any writings or anybody that has really developed that theory in any kind of a public facing way. But yeah, it's certainly something that some experiencers have wondered about. My own intuitive feeling is that they didn't create it, but it certainly helps their cause.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard some like QHHT sessions where that was a subject that came up, and it was like it seemed like it was kind of facilitated in some way because that was a thing that was going to happen, like an outcome of it. And then also just from the amount of interviews that we've done with people on this show, like almost everyone has well, I wanted to do this or I didn't think about doing this until COVID time. And then they had the time to do it and they had the opportunity to do it. And it like they all like everybody has that story.
Yeah, I think time is important, but like you just said, this podcast wouldn't exist. You guys were in medium classes together. You wouldn't have done the medium classes unless you had the time to do it, which was and so we've heard that story numerous times. So whether or not it was brought on or not, I think it definitely was kind of the gate opening metaphorically somehow or another. Yeah.
Well, and I'm pretty active in the experiencer subreddit, and there have been massive waves of people coming into that subreddit. There have been a couple major waves since 2020. But there was one in 2020, there was another in 2021, there was kind of another in 2023, I think. But there have definitely been pandemic associated major waves of awakenings for people who are now realizing that they are experiencers of anomalous phenomena, often contact with non-human intelligences, but not exclusively that.
Frosty, will you put Chico's comment back up? Because I think that's a really good point that it could be, she said, or they saw an opportunity and took it.
Yeah.
As far as like our whole COVID situation, like, oh, now everybody has time to not be distracted by everything and know what's, something else that's really going on.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Jenny, that it's sort of like they didn't cause it, but there was this sort of fortuitous, like, commingling of timelines that it's possible that they exerted some influence over, but it wasn't as though some council of aliens sat around and said, hey, let's unleash a virus on humanity that will.
I agree with that. Yeah. Fantasy Animal Vegan is having their own crazy experiences in this podcast right now. Well, first of all,
it happens. I love it when that happens.
Like a while back, Frosty, can I share this other one first?
Yeah. Go ahead.
A while back, when you were talking about, I can't remember exactly what it was at this point, but said, hearing this, I'm getting goosebumps and welling up with tears. And then the second one was the one that Frosty had just put up, which I love this exclamation. I'm going to steal it. Sweet baby corn. Courtney, you just answered a question I asked someone 2 hours ago. Am I dreaming right now? So, yeah.
The phenomenon is weird. I mean, what can I say? And I was just on another podcast, and something like this happened with me and the host of that podcast, who, in the process of us talking during the interview, he remembered having a cardinal experience of his own that brought both of us to like the verge of tears. It was just such a powerful thing, but this is how it happens. This is how it happens.
I was having a similar thing happen, and it happened right before Fantasy posted the thing about tearing up. When you were talking about, that might have been what she was talking about at that point. When you were talking about like being a child in your bedroom and like being afraid and like knowing that you can go hide in the closet and like the lights coming in the window and everything. Like I had a physical reaction where I wanted to start crying because I know that as a child, I had a fear that if I got up to go to the bathroom and I came back, someone would be in the bed. And like, I wonder what that is, like, what is that?
What is that all about?
Well,
one wonders. Yeah.
There are some connections there, because I mean, that's been one of the things that's happened in your community and Team Weird in general, is through mediumship, being able to have communications with ET.
Yes. Yeah. We communicate with all types of different beings from all over the place.
Yeah. It's all part of, it's all connected somehow, because people see gray aliens during near-death experiences. There's definitely a connection to the dead in all of this. I don't think anybody completely understands it, but if you're in it long enough, you just intuitively sense that that's true, and you probably have had some experiences that sort of blend several of these things together.
Yeah, I mean, because you've had experiences with mantids, right, Jenny? With a mantid?
I was having what I thought was a telepathic kind of communication with a mantid, and I was questioning whether it was really happening. But then my brother and myself both saw a mantid the next day, like at the same time.
There's your confirmation.
Right? So it's like, how can you question it after that? It's like, then you just have to know that that was real.
Yeah. There's your confirmation.
I have a very important question. Frosty, hold on.
I know.
I told you before we started, I was like, if I don't ask her any question but this one, this is the one I have to ask.
Yeah. Go for it.
I want to know what you think about the theory that people make contracts with them before they come into an incarnation that like allows them to do all of these things that they're doing.
That's a tough one. I believe, because you get into all of these issues of agency and talking about where do we go from here if disclosure is a thing, and now we're going to be open about the fact that we're communicating with aliens. Do we need sort of like an experiencer's bill of rights? That it's sort of like, okay, I need to have agency in this process. Here's what you can and can't do. That's in the conversation for sure, because it's difficult to say, I agreed to this before I incarnated in this life.
Right. That's how I feel about it.
Because then I feel like that almost excuses a whole bunch of really horrible things that have happened to people.
Exactly.
And it can lead to it being able to say, well, you just brought all this trauma on yourself because you agreed to it. So I think that I think in many cases we probably do have some sort of a pre-life discussion, but I think it's very important for us to be able to nope out of that.
Yeah.
If we want to, that we have to be able to have some agency in the process. And I think that's an important part of this going forward. But I also think it's part of why traditional abductions are actually decreasing. There was a peak in abductions in the 60s through maybe the 90s, which is sort of like the classical age of abductions. And while they still happen, it tends to be less common now that you have those very traumatic physical types of abductions. And so it's almost like as human spirituality evolves, the strategy of how the beings interact with us is changing.
I agree.
And so I think we're seeing it's sort of like, okay, well, we don't have to do that now as much, because people's consciousness is evolving to the point that we can interact with humans in a different way, that we don't have to do that. But if you really want to go, like, there's also this idea that if you go back to the Roswell era, that the US government made agreements with non-human intelligences, that basically the government gave them permission in exchange for technology. We're giving you the right to experiment on humans.
I wouldn't put it past our government.
So
I can totally see that being our government for sure.
So I think I think, like all of this, it's complicated, and I don't think there's one one answer that hits 100% of the cases.
I agree. Yeah.
I think it's very, I think I'm a big believer in us co-creating our reality. And so I think that a lot of what we personally experience can be similar to other people, but there's an element that we have been co-creating this. And so from our point of view, it may be just a little different from us than it is with anybody else, even though there are lots of commonalities. So that's a complicated question.
Totally is. Yeah. Because like, I kind of feel like you do. And that's why I wanted to ask, because some people just are like, nope, you made that agreement before you came in here. And that's why it's okay if they do whatever they do. But I'm kind of like on the fence about that. So I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page.
That's always been one of the tricky parts for me, because I've always just had a feeling that if some kind of entities were able to traverse time and space, however, we perceive that, to be able to come here, obviously with technology that is far beyond our comprehension, there's no like military response to that. It's a different level. And so I've always felt like if they were to have some kind of bad intent, we would have known that a long time ago. Maybe even before humans even existed. I don't know. Or, a long time ago. So the question that's been the biggest question I've had is, if ET is coming here, and if ET has all these wonderful things that whether that's density shifts or whatever those things are, then why do we have this, like the Whitley Strieber stories, and why do we have the Travis Walton stories, and why were people terrified, and why are people having medical things done to them without their permission? So I think that helps a little bit, at least maybe trying to understand that, but I still don't know if it's I don't know if it clarifies it fully for me there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't think it's possible to completely clarify that. I think that's just one of those things that, it's probably different, almost on a case-by-case basis. Because we all have our karma, and we all have, it's so complicated that it's not really reducible down to like chains of causality that probably would make any sense to us.
Right.
It does make a lot of sense, though. I haven't really thought about that before, that experiencers are tending to be more people connected to the woo-woo as maybe it wasn't like in the 80s. And I think we talk about this all the time on the show, because we talk about all the things here, mediumship and aliens and Bigfoot. And one of the reasons is because it's beginning to seem like all of those things are connected. Like there's no purpose to divide them into their own separate groups, because they all seem to be related in one aspect or another.
Yeah, that's true. I do see some of those silos breaking down, because historically this has been very siloed. The cryptid people don't talk to the ghost people, and neither of them talk to the UFO people. But I do think that modern ufology is starting to understand and I think it's because we're having a lot of these scientific breakthroughs with consciousness in consciousness research that I think is starting to demonstrate how intimately a function of consciousness all of this is, which sort of naturally, I think, breaks down some of those barriers.
Right. I really want to share Fantasy Animal Vegan's comment because I think it's really important. One thing, as a child, the entity would come at night, its arm turn huge, it would pull the roof off my house, pull me out through my body, and take me on walks together. I felt so safe, honestly, the safest and calmest I've ever felt in my childhood, and I didn't know how to talk to people about it. 50 years old now, and this is the first time I've shared it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
I'm honored. Yeah.
Right.
I'm honored to be able to witness that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
That's like what you said you're supposed to be doing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We need to just create, I'm like I said, I'm passionate about just creating containers for witnessing all of this stuff so that people can talk about it, because there are lots of people that have been holding this stuff in for decades because they were afraid to talk about it because everybody will think you're crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Adam Ramos had mentioned over on YouTube about the, going back in time with the government possibly allowing that to happen. And he brought up Eisenhower. And that is one that I've heard, there's a lot of Majestic 12 and Eisenhower and all kinds of things that have been put in there. And unfortunately, no one knows what to believe with that because there's been so much disinformation put out there as well. So thanks for sharing there, Adam.
It was interesting that in Disclosure Day, Spielberg chose to include a reenactment of the alleged encounter between Nixon and Jackie Gleason, which is another one that it just makes the rounds of, hey, this really happened. And for all of those of us that think Spielberg knows some stuff, it was just interesting that he chose, I feel like he almost gave this tacit endorsement to all of the things that he featured in the movie as a way of sort of wink, wink. Yeah, that really happened.
Right.
And I would have loved for there to have been one with the Eisenhower,
Yes.
Right.
The Eisenhower handshake or whatever.
Could have done that one too, for sure.
Led to all of this.
Right. Well, we're at the end of the show already. Of course, it went way too fast. You had brought up we entered a time slip here. No.
We didn't get to talk.
You brought up your Substack earlier. Will you please share where everybody can find your writings?
Yes. It's courtneybuterbaugh.substack.com. My Substack's called The Unidentified Felt Object.
I love it.
Because it occurred to me when that this is a lot about the body, and the body plays a really important role in our anomalous experience and contact. So one of the lenses that I write through is the somatic aspects of contact. So
will you spell your last name for people who might be listening and not seeing?
Yes, it's Buterbaugh. But if you go to Substack and type in The Unidentified Felt Object, FELT, then you should find me.
It's a great blog. I've read quite a few articles that she's written on there and blogs or whatever you want to call them, whatever the correct terminology is, and they're very interesting. Plus, there's like people commenting on them, so there's like there's a continuous dialogue going on there about what's happening, what she's talking about.
Yeah. It turns out that this is what I was meant to do. I think as part of this awakening process, I'm meant to do aliens and write about aliens full time. So who would have thought?
Excellent. Another quick note before we head out tonight, I just wanted to go over Norsk reached a 35 stream streak tonight. Hoaxsters resubbed. They've been subbed for 38 months. Thank you, Hoaxsters.
Thanks, Hoaxsters.
Keisha Mama reached a 30 stream streaks. Thank you, as always, Keisha Mama, for all of your help and with the stream. And Fantasy Animal Vegan resubbed They've been sub for 2 months, and with the message, time to stop discounting my experiences and intuition, I'm committing to showing up here with my weird community. So thank you.
Letting the
animal vegan.
Weird flag fly.
There we go. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Courtney.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. We could talk about this for hours.
Well, I think we're going to have you back so we can talk about it for some more hours.
I would be happy. I would be happy to come back.
Excellent. All right, everyone. So all of you who are listening at another time and another place, we will see you all next time.